Hi, this is Tom Woods with R2 Sports Technology, and in this video we're going to take a few minutes and look at how an offensive staff can self-scout themselves with one of our GameBreak scouting dashboards, and kind of walk through the process of some ways that you might utilize this to best look at your own data, understand your own strengths and weaknesses, and do self-scouting either at a midpoint during a season or at the end of the season, to kind of self-diagnose where your strengths and weaknesses are. So as we walk through this again, just a couple quick notes I always like to point out as we get going in these. Dashboards, again, are intended to be a tool for you and not something that forces you into a different way of thinking. As coaches, and again, as I say in most of these, I'm not a football coach. I have a data perspective on the world. But as football coaches, I respect the fact that there's more than one way to get things done, and each coach has kind of a different way of looking at the world and understanding their team as best they can. So there's nothing in a dashboard that forces you to think any differently than you would normally be thinking about your team or about the way you approach things with your team. They are basically a blank canvas, a tool for you where you can let your brain go where it needs to go and very quickly and effectively decompose your team and understand where you're strong, where you're weak, where things are broken, where things are working. It's really just intended to be that kind of a quick response tool for you. As with every dashboard, when I initially open one of these up, I usually start by getting just a general impression of what I'm seeing in a dashboard. And the interpretation of what we look at, again, is really a function of size and color when we look at these. And color is usually the first thing that jumps out at me. So when I look at this example, this dashboard, this is a team, I think it's a high school team in this case, where they're doing a self-scout on their entire previous season. So they're looking at every play they ran in the last year. The color, the dominant color that's in here is more of an orange-yellow kind of hue to it overall. And again, you can always go to this team box here, and you can get a summary of everything in the dashboard. So it's kind of got this yellowish color. They're about a 40% efficient team, which means we're not looking at a team or an offense that was highly efficient this last year. They had their struggles, to say the least. Now, but with any team, as you guys can appreciate, there are certainly going to be places where they're very good and very strong, and there's a number of places where they've struggled. So it's not always one size fits all to say that they're a weak offense, but we're going to kind of walk through some different ways that you might decompose yourself if this was your team. Now, again, in this section, or as we look at the types of information they provided to us here in this case, they've got information related to formations and plays, personnel groupings, where they use motion, directions of where they go, any number of things that you can include in one of your dashboards that will help you best understand yourself. Now, one way that you might do a self-scout, several different ways you could go, but we always kid kind of that offensive coordinators can get fired for big red boxes, because a big red box in a certain area means that a big box means it's done a lot, that they do that a lot, and the color red would mean that they're not good at it. So an offensive coordinator who insists on doing the same thing over and over and over again while not having any success probably won't be an offensive coordinator for too long. So there's certainly an aversion to big red boxes if you're an offensive guy. So from a self-scout perspective, many coaches are looking for those problem areas and want to decompose, why are things breaking down, why are we having a problem in this area. Let's give you a quick example here. So this team, if we look in the formation box, their dominant formation that they ran out of was an ace-right formation. It was not a highly effective formation for them. I can tell by the color of this. It's about a 40% effective formation for them. So if we want to begin to understand why did we struggle so much from an ace-right, and we insisted on running from an ace-right more than anything else, but struggled, let's see if we can figure out why a little bit. So by clicking again, just simply clicking on ace-right, what we're going to do is filter everything in our dashboard, where we're looking now at every play that we ran from an ace-right formation. Okay, so in this case, again, once we make a click on something in the dashboard, the key to understanding the implications of that are to look in the different sections, and we're looking to interpret size and color. size, and color, because that'll tell me the story of what's going on here with this formation. So from an ace right, let's take this as an example. Here are the plays that are run. I tend to gravitate down towards the play type very quickly, just to kind of see what were they doing from this formation. And this was a dominant passing formation for them. 73% of the time they passed from this formation. Now I can tell, again, they struggled to pass from here. So they ran about 25% of the time, and they were fairly efficient when they ran from this formation, but 3/4 of the time they were passing the ball and not passing it effectively. So we may go a little bit deeper and say, okay, the problem from ace right isn't running the ball. The problem from ace right is passing the ball. So what we can do is let's decompose our passing situation here a little bit. So let's select on passes in this case. So now we're looking at every pass play that they ran from an ace right formation. Now, I can begin to see the specific play calls they made, when they tended to run these calls, when they, what formation groups they worked out of, what personnel groupings were involved, and we can start to see a few things. So let's take a look at their plays, the play tree here, just to give you an idea. This is types of plays that they ran. They ran screens more than any other play type when they were in an ace right, and screens really weren't the problem for them. It's a green box. It's not tremendous offensive performance, but it's not horrible either. So it really wasn't the screen that gave them trouble. But we can start to see the types of plays where they did struggle. Cross plays, Raider, shallow, shot, stick, these were where we had problems. We can begin to see our most common specific play call that they made out of an ace right was this 80 Raider play, and it just never worked. They can begin to see now, as they go into this next year and they start to think about what are we doing from ace right, what are we doing when we throw from an ace right, they can begin to look and say, okay, well last year where we had success were these blue plays. Bama, stick 51 jail, 90 cross fox. These were plays that worked. But this 80 Raider and the shallow, Raider and shallow play types were just a bust for them, for whatever reason. Now they can filter on those and look up those clips and start to understand why that happened or why they struggled. There's a few other interesting observations we can see here. You look at their personnel groupings. When they're in an ace right, they were good from regular personnel, but when they ran it from spread, they struggled when they ran from spread. Play direction. They were terrible when they went right, but pretty good when they went left. So there's some quick ways that they can begin to diagnose and understand why are we struggling so much from an ace right formation when we throw the ball. And they can either A, eliminate them from what they're doing, or B, begin to address those issues in a different way as they go through this. Okay. Now another type of situation, again, that's just an example of where they're looking for where they might have a weakness. I'm going to set these back here real quick. And again, we're looking at a specific formation where they had some struggles. They certainly had places where they were very effective. Now, we can look at a specific type of play that they tend to run. Let's look at another place where they struggle a little bit is this shot play that they ran. So this play family where they run something called a shot was where they struggled a little bit. That set of plays was tough. Let's just look at the shot play here for a second, this play type. And what we'll likely see is, this is typically the case, that this is a passing play, the shot play. Then we'll see here very quickly that while overall they struggled with that play, it was not a highly effective play for them, but there were certain situations and certain formations where they did run that from where they were highly effective. So if we look at that play type, what they can see quickly is they had a lot of success with that play when they ran it from a fire alarm formation or a two right formation. But most every other time they ran it, they did not have success. They struggled. So while they might see that, hey, that was tough for us, you don't want to throw it out the window. What you want to do is if you're going to run that play, you run it from fire alarm or from two right. That's where you can have success. Or you're going to go diagnose why did we struggle so much from these other locations. But a dashboard is going to give you the ability to very quickly access that information and understand and do a self-diagnosis of where you're strong, where you're weak. If you do have a glaring weakness, you can decompose it very quickly and find out the situations where, if we are going to do that, we're going to do it from these situations. But we can understand very quickly, diagnose, address issues, either throw things out that need to be eliminated or go fix them in practice and focus in on the situations where we're going to have success. So this is a quick example again of how you can do a self-scout from an offensive perspective using one of these dashboards. So many different ways to look at how you're successful and how you're not. Everything's available to you. This is an example to help get your mind going a little bit with how you might approach it. But again, keeping in mind that the dashboard is a tool that lets you take your coaching brain and go where you want to go quickly and get instant feedback so you can diagnose problems and get out to the practice field and fix them and spend your time on those kind of things instead of guessing and trying to piece together a story. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of information. Again, we encourage you to take a look at some of the other videos we have out there that help illustrate how to best implement and use these dashboards. If you have questions, would like more information on how these work or how you might best utilize the dashboards you have, don't hesitate to contact us, and we appreciate you taking a few minutes. Thanks.